Okay, so we are gonna go over our problems for the semester final review. So then you can have this for your test. So number 1, it says use the discriminant of 2x squared minus 12x plus 13 equals 0 to find the number and type of solutions. Okay, so over here I wrote down the formula that you have to use if they're asking you to find the number and type of solutions. So I'm going to use those things to plug in. So my A right here is the 2, my B is the negative 12, my C is the 13. So we'll write in blue. So my B squared, so I'm going to use parentheses. So my B is negative 12 squared. Then I have my minus sign. I use parentheses again. 4 times my A value, which is 2, times my C value, which is 13. Plug into calculator. Okay, so I'm just going to put that directly into my calculator. So I pull up my calculator. I'm going to clear this out. Parentheses, negative 12, close parentheses, squared, minus, parentheses, 4 times 2 times 13. Close my second set of parentheses. Hit enter, and I get 40. So this is equal to 40. So we have 2 real rational solutions because it is a positive number. So that's my number and type of solutions because it's 40. All right, number 2. Let's do purple. Solve x squared minus 8x plus 6 equals 0. So this is a quadratic formula problem. Okay, so this is my quadratic formula right here. My A is 1 because there's no number in front there, so it means 1. My B is negative 8, and then my C is 6. So again, I'm just replacing my numbers with the part of the formula. So I have my negative sign. My B is a negative 8. Again, notice I have 2 negative signs. This first negative sign is always a part of the formula, and then my B is a negative 8, so now I have another negative sign. Then I have my plus or minus. I'm going to do my square root box. My B is negative 8. I square it, minus 4 times the 1, because that's my A, times 6, because that's my C. And that's all over 2 times 1. I'm only going to put this portion into the calculator. So not with the square root box, just the negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. So I have negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6. And I get 40 again. So then this is equal to 8 plus or minus the square root of 40 over 2. Okay. This is when I have to ask myself, is this 40 a perfect square? And if it's not, then I have to ask myself, what perfect square goes into 40? So remember those perfect squares, and I'll write them down up here. So perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. Okay, so for our case, the number that goes into 40 that's a perfect square is 4. So that means that this would be 8 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 10. 4 times 10 gives me 40, divided by 2. Okay, now the square root of 4 is 2, so 8 plus or minus 2 square root of 10 over 2. And then my last step is to divide by 2 what I can. So again, this square root of 4, I plug into the calculator and I get 2. So that's where that came from. The square root of 4 is 2. Now this 2 can go into 8 and 2 evenly. So that means I'm dividing. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. Then my plus or minus, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then my square root of 10. You could also see this as just 4 plus or minus square root of 10. So either option is okay. If you don't write the 1, that's okay. If you do write the 1, that's okay as well. All right, next one. Number 3, what is the vertex of the quadratic function 16x squared plus 8x minus 8? This is my formula over here to find half of my vertex, basically. So this is like right here is to find h. So I'm just plugging things in again. So my a is 16, my b is 8, my c is negative 8. So to find my h, I have a negative sign, my b is a positive 8, and then over 2 times 16. So I'm going to plug that directly into my calculator. So I have a negative sign, my 8 divided by 2 times 16. And I get negative 0.25. Negative 0.25. Okay, so that was to find my h. To get my k, so find k, I'm going to plug what I found back into the original problem. So it would be 16 times negative 0.25 squared plus 8 times negative 0.25 minus 8. And again, I'm just going to plug that directly into the calculator. So 16 times negative 0.25 squared, and then it was plus 8 times negative 0.25, close my parentheses, and then the last part was minus 8, enter, and I get negative 9. So negative 9. So my final answer is always in terms of an ordered pair. The h comes first that we found, so the negative 0.25. And then the k comes second, negative 9. Final answer. Okay, number 4. So number 4 says, what is the y-intercept of the quadratic function x squared plus 18x minus 19? Okay, so what I wrote down here, your c is always going to be your y-intercept, and your y-intercept is always represented by an ordered pair of 0, comma, and then whatever that c value is. So in our case, our c is this negative 19, it's that number on the end, and then I write it as an ordered pair for a y-intercept. So it's always a 0 and then whatever that number is. So negative 19. Final answer. So that one's an easy one. All right, number 5. Given the quadratic function 2 times x plus 3 squared plus 14, Identify the vertex and determine whether it's a minimum or maximum. Okay, so remember how I kind of taught you guys like the opposite H and then the same K? So right here I labeled. So the number on the outside of the parentheses represents your A. The number inside your parentheses is an H, and then the number on the very end is your K. So the opposite H. So this H right here is showing a positive 3. So that means that when I write my vertex down, I do the opposite of a positive 3. So that's going to be a negative 3. And then I put the K exactly what it shows. So it shows a positive 14. So then it's a positive 14. So that's my vertex. So that's part of my answer. Okay. Then it says determine whether it's a minimum or a maximum. So remember, if my A, so my A right here is a 2. If it's a positive A, that means it represents my minimum. Minimum, because A equals a positive 2. So meaning like if you saw this on a picture, your graph, it would be like this. It would represent my minimum. Okay. All right, number 6. What are the solutions of the equation 4x squared minus 36 equals 0? My little hint over here, solve for x using opposite operations. So I have 4x squared minus 36 equals 0. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my numbers that have no letters away from the term that has an x. So I do the opposite. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. So this is going to cancel out. So then I have 4x squared equals 36. Next, I want to do the opposite of multiplying, because right here this is showing multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. These 4's cancel out. So then I have x squared equals 9. And then the last thing that I would need to do is I would need to take the square root, because that's the opposite of squaring something. So the square root of x squared is just x, and then the square root of 9 is plus or minus 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, but negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. So you have to represent it by both by using that plus or minus sign. All right, number 7. What are the solutions of the equation negative 10x squared plus 7x minus 3 equals 0? Again, this is the time that you want to use the quadratic formula. So I wrote it down over here again. I labeled your A, your B, and your C. So now I'm just replacing. So I have a negative. My B is 7 plus or minus my square root box. 7 squared minus 4 times negative 10 times negative 3. All over 2 times negative 10. Again, just like the other problem, I'm only putting this part into the calculator. So this will be negative 7 plus or minus. I'm going to have a square root box. And this is going to be over negative 20 because of 2 times negative 10. So 7 squared minus 4. 7 squared minus 4 times negative 10 times negative 3. And I get negative 71. So I put negative 71. So these were the problems that we did, that whenever you get a negative on the inside, that means that I've got to put an I on the outside, and then I remove that negative sign. And then divided by negative 20. Okay. These negative signs like cancel out if I've got one up here and one down here. So then my final answer is just going to be 7 plus or minus I square root of 71 over 20. All right, number 8. What is the midpoint between 10, 4 and 5, 9? This is the formula that you're going to use. This is my x1, y1, x2, y2. So that means that I have my x1, which is 10, plus my x2, which is 5, divided by 2, because I'm finding the midpoint. Then my y1, which is 4, plus my y2, which is 9, and then divided by 2. So if I plug this directly into my calculator, I've got to make sure that I put parentheses around the top. So 10 plus 5 divided by 2. So parentheses 10 plus 5, close parentheses, divided by 2, enter, 7.5. So 7.5, comma, and then 4 plus 9 divided by 2. So parentheses 4 plus 9, close parentheses, divided by 2, 6.5. Final answer. Okay, number 9, determine the scale factor of the dilation below. So remember, it's always going to be your scale factor is equal to your dilation over your original. Then the dilation is always the dotted one. So you just have to decide which side matches, and then you do 1 divided by the other. So if I wanted to like highlight a couple things, so like 54 matches with 36. Then I could say that 51 matches with 34. And then the last one, 15 matches with 10. So I can check any one of these I want. So I can do 54 divided by 36. I can do 51 divided by 34. Or I could do 15 divided by 10. Regardless of whichever one I use, it's still going to be the same answer. So I'll just check one of them. 54 divided by 36, 1.5. Okay, so 1.5, regardless of which side you choose, as long as you choose the matching side, is your answer. So K is 1.5, or my scale factor is 1.5. Okay, number 10. DR is 9.3 units long. If DR is dilated by a scale factor of K, which is 3.2, what is the length of your dilation? So right here, I use the formula again, K equals dilation over original. So my K is 3.2, and then my dilation I don't know, so I'm going to mark that with X. And then my original is this 9.3. So in order to solve this, my X is equal to multiplying my two numbers. So 3.2 times 9.3. So I do that on my calculator, 3.2 times 9.3, enter, 29.76. All right, number 11. The length of a building's shadow is 201.6 feet. At the same time of day, a 1.6 foot tall statue casts a shadow that is 3.2 feet long. what is the height of the building? Okay, so I have the setup for you. So notice I'm doing the building shadow over the statue shadow. So then the other side for my proportion, I have to do the building height over the statue height. So both building things are on top, both statue things are on bottom. You have to set it up consistently. So my building shadow, they gave me as 201.6. The statue shadow is 3.2. Then I have my equal sign. The building height is my X. That's what they're looking for. And then my statue height is 1.6. So this is when I cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to multiply 201.6 times 1.6 and then 3.2 times X. So 201.6 times 1.6, and I get 322.56. So 322.56 equals 3.2x. My last step is to divide, because again, it's called cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide. These cancel out. I'm going to divide on my calculator, 322.56 divided by 3.2, and I get 100.8. All right, and then number 12. Triangle ABF is similar to triangle ACE. What is the length of BC? So they gave you these lines here and they marked them with the triangles. And if you remember, that means parallel. So when they're parallel like this, these two are similar and then these two are similar. So that's why these got circled and these got squared. So I'm going to set it up as like my circle over my circle. So it's going to be 18 over x and then 12 over 3.6. So notice I did the 18 on the top, which is over here on the left-hand side. So that means the 12 has to go on the top because it's also over here on the left-hand side. So I'm just keeping it consistent. I'm going to cross multiply. So 18 times the 3.6. My equal sign, and then 12 times x, which is just 12x. So 18 times 3.6, I get 64.8 equals 12x. I'm going to divide by 12 on both sides. So my x is equal to 64.8 divided by 12, 5.4.